ladies and gentlemen. Now, in today's video, we are going to be breaking down the March update for everybody's favourite, slightly controversial Google spreadsheet. So we got lots of little changes today, man, quite a few promotions, a few demotions as well, but also the introduction of two new characters that are very underwhelming, Super Skrull and Pyscho-Man, and three buffed up characters as well, which are really nice. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about today, but one thing I realize, like, every single month now, man, the game is like 6.5 years old. There's 200 characters, there's like 20-30 different modes of gameplay as well. There's, you know, hundreds of different matchups, thousands of different nodes. The game is so incredibly complicated at this point that it's actually ridiculous, man. So use this tier list for what it is. Standard disclaimer, a very rough guide to what I personally believe are some of the best characters overall in Marvel Contest of Champions on a comparative scale, because it's a very complicated game, and if you want to know exactly how good a character is, look that character up on YouTube, perfect that character, and find out for yourself, man, because there is so much to every single character, and I try my best to stay in the know and watch as many videos as I can from like top level MCOC players, but there is always so much stuff going out. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. So yeah, use this for what it is, a very rough guide to what I personally believe are some of the best and worst characters on a comparative spectrum. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the three buff characters, man, because I think that's probably like a lot more exciting than the two new champions. So first off, we got the buffed up version of Angela, and her new awakened ability is absolutely nuts because it allows her to be fully immune to any damaging debuff at 3 or more buffs, and this happens easily within a few seconds of the fight. And even if you take like one debuff, you quickly get the regeneration, which then counts as a buff, and as long as you crit as well, it's just like really easy to meet the criteria for a brand new awakened ability there. And this can counter bleed, poison, incinerate, shock, non-passive degeneration nodes such as Enquiries, and any non-passive damaging debuff in the game. So it's absolutely ridiculous. It means Angela can now do like 10 times the fights that she could do previously in comparison, not to mention she's had some of the most insane synergies with both of the Cosmic Cavalier nodes as well, especially now that she has an armor break on top of that. So yeah, Angela is crazy now, man. Also, her awakened ability allows her now to easily fully counter auto block mechanics on like Iron Man Infinity War, Darkhawk, MODOK. She can now parry projectiles and also stun on those. So for example, like Havoc, Iron Man Infinity War, their medium attacks means you don't have to re-parry there. She also now has an armor break for every single buff that she has on her, and this can strip down and counter annoying armor characters and nodes, so like Red Skull, Iron Man Infinity War, Killmonger, Emma Frost. She's also had like a nice additional buff to her damage output, still got some nice base regeneration, and overall she can do like everything that she could previously as well. And I think with the new Cavalier event quest and certain stuff in Act 7, she was starting to get even more appreciation. But now, man, it's like Angela is just nuts for so much stuff. So she's been moved up to solid god tier, and I think she really does deserve it. Then next up, we probably got the most controversial ranking today, at least I'm going to estimate that, and that's Civil Warrior going into high demigod tier. I think B tier is a really good starting place for Civil Warrior, because I think there's been a very mixed reaction to his buff, because he's really good kind of like best case scenario, but also he's a very annoying and impractical character to play in many scenarios as well. And this is due to the fact that you need to hold his block on average every 8 to 10 seconds in order to convert armor to fury and refresh the fury, because it only lasts for 12-second duration, and if you can ramp it up, the damage is absolutely massive. And also his utility is a bit more solid than it was previously as well, so I can see maybe an argument for God tier promotion if you really do enjoy his play style. But he's been out less than a week so far, and again, it has been a very mixed response to his buff, but I feel like as the week has gone on, people are like disliking their Civil Warriors more and more, just due to the fact that like he's really annoying to play most of the time. So yeah, I wish his Fury just had like double duration, man, and you didn't need to hold blocks so much. However, he can also become immune to bleed and poison applying to him if he's got more than 4 armor. So for biohazard nodes, again, not quite as ideal as like double immunity, but can still work in those scenarios. He also has armor up and lots of buffs to counter characters like Havoc and also the buffed up node. He is also now fully immune to Nullify and also counters buffet nodes as well, which is very, very useful. And also he's got a very strong heal block now, which has a 10-second duration off the heavy, and you can pause it for 6 seconds on special attacks. So kind of like mechanic-wise and utility-wise, he's quite a simple champion to play, but from what I'm like seeing and reading so far, he's a very Marmite champion. Some people really like him, some people don't like him so much, but I'm interested to see kind of moving forward into the next month what people use him for. So yeah, I might promote Civil Warrior up to gold tier, but I really want to see him earn that promotion, so I'm going to do a little bit more testing myself. Again, this rank is not finalized, it's a very fresh buff out of the gate, but the thing that kind of weighs him down for me is the very impractical playstyle, especially in like high stress scenarios. I'm not really too sure if he's going to be a character that does go the distance for a lot of players, but yeah, I'm curious to keep an eye on Civil Warrior moving forward. Now next up, we have the buffed up version of Massacre, who is so much more fun to play. They've made this character substantially more practical now, and pretty much every scenario, it's so much easier to ignite the bat and get kind of the massive damage, and then also your bat stays ignited for a little bit longer, and the damage on the special too has been like massively stacked up, and also the invisibility period or the miss period after it has been increased as well, which allows you to like intercept the opponent after, which is really satisfying. So yeah, there's just a lot of good stuff with Massacre, man. He feels great to play now, huge boost to his damage output, and especially in some of the short fights as well, he's just so fun and so bursty to play around with. Not to mention, Massacre has some pretty good quirky utility, so he applies so many incinerates when the bat is ignited, reduces block proficiency massively, also can gain power hitting into block as well, which is very nice. He's a very strong ability accuracy reduction on the special one, and if you do this right at the start of the fight before the bat is ignited, then yeah, it's a 50% reduction that lasts for 36 seconds there, and this also synergizes with a brand new skill Cavalier node that we saw last month as well. So yeah, there's just a lot of good stuff for Massacre, man. He's been really fun to play, and also he's just so much more practical than he was previously. So yeah, I can already see like arguments and perspectives in the comments section about Civil Warrior. You know, potentially best case scenario having a bit more damage and maybe like equivalent or better utility in some scenarios than Massacre. But yeah, I think they're very different champions. And again, the one thing that really does weigh Civil Warrior down is like just holding block like once every 8 to 10 seconds, because Massacre, you can just go absolutely ham. Core part of the Domino Trinity as well, so quite easy to bring to a lot of stuff. But yeah, Civil Warrior is definitely one I'm debating, but let me know your thoughts in the comments section below on how you've been finding Civil Warrior and whether or not you think he deserves a god tier ranking, or is high demigod tier the right spot for him, because again, it's something I've been going back and forth on a little bit here. But anyway, let's move on to talking about the new champions. Now, the February champions kind of felt like first or second drafts of the characters that weren't like properly tuned or kind of thought out too well or polished off, and I think they're just both very underwhelming characters, and in comparison to other characters in their respective classes, I think they've both got huge flaws and big cons that just really make them characters that, you know, are just instantly outdated in comparison to like 10 or 15 other options in that class, but like they're not so bad that they're completely unplayable. So if you do like their animations and play style, then yeah, they can still get some stuff done, but they're also very flawed champions as well. So first off, we got Super Skrull. So Super Skrull, he takes a while to ramp up to decent damage. You got a special 3, special 1, special 2. He's got a fairly similar rotation to Red Goblin, but at least Red Goblin like has some sort of like big payoff, whereas Super Skrull doesn't really have that. You've got to ramp up to get like some average damage. So yeah, it's just pretty underwhelming in most scenarios. He is also immune to Shock and Incinerate, so for certain stuff can be very good for that. He has access to Fury and Armor Up buffs, and also depending on how you stack his buffs, you can bypass auto block, miss, or go unblockable. However, this utility is often unreliable when you need it the most. It dents the damage, and you can't have 100% uptime. He also has a falter safety net mechanic, so as soon as the fight begins, you got 25-second cooldown, and then falter can trigger. However, even if you block or parry a hit, it triggers off that, so it's not really like that useful the majority of the time, and it's probably out like 5-10 times worse in comparison to Professor X, whose one actually triggers off hits on you. So yeah, it's not really that great in my opinion. Also, a good chunk of his damage is from Incinerate, and if you can't incinerate the opponent, you lose out big time. So yeah, his damage, which isn't like that impressive on the base, is even worse if you can't incinerate the opponent, and also he's a lot worse to play without his awakened ability and a decent sig level as well, because it takes even longer to get into his damage, and also makes it harder to get, 2 special 2s out of the kind of massive fury duration. So yeah, he's just a little bit of a miss in my opinion, man. I just feel like he's kind of a worse version of Red Goblin, who also has his flaws and isn't like that great of a champion to play. And again, you've got so much like ridiculous stuff in the Cosmic class that Super Skrull I don't really think stands out too much. I think some people are going to have fun because his animations are really cool, and he's fun to play around with for a while. But yeah, overall in terms of like, you know, breaking the game or being an exciting new champion, he doesn't really hit that mark, at least in my opinion. So yeah, a bit of a disappointment there. And then we got Pyscho-Man, who's just like super underwhelming. So you got to pick with Pyscho-Man between damage and utility. And if you focus on damage, man, it's really underwhelming. But if you focus on utility, his damage is absolute noodle tier. It is really, really bad. So yeah, his damage output just sucks. And I think the highlight of the character, probably the best thing he brings to the table, at least in my opinion, is the access to a strong power control rotation on the special 2 that prevents the opponent from using special attacks. If you can play really aggressively and spam heavy attacks in the corner, and then just keep on kind of like looping special 2. So sometimes he can have some really nice power control with that rotation, but if the opponent doesn't want to play ball for you to kind of get that parry and then heavy attack and spam in the corner, then yeah, it doesn't quite work out. And because like it's a full lock as well and not an actual drain or power lock, the awakened ability can also, if abilities fail to trigger, add a power lock on top of that. But sometimes, again, depending on the matchup and character and node, it can be a little bit inconsistent on that. But yeah, if you like mistime it just because you're like locking the opponent's ability to actually throw the special, you can still get clapped in some scenarios. So I wouldn't say the loop is like better than Magic. So I'd say Magic has like a much better loop and overall is a much stronger power control character. But yeah, Pyscho-Man in some scenarios he is going to get the job done, but overall he's just like a very flawed character, at least in my opinion. But yeah, he also does have access to additional ability accuracy reduction for certain mechanics and heal block and power lock via the awakened ability when certain abilities do fail to trigger, and taunt mechanics that make the opponent fight more aggressively and throw special attacks in certain stances as well. But yeah, I just found him like really awkward to play. It's not like he does like anything the best in comparison to other tech options as well, and the damage output, again, if you want to focus on the utility, man, which is kind of the strength of him, then yeah, it's just really underwhelming. So overall, Pyscho-Man, at least in my opinion, is a bit of a miss. Super Skrull as well. Again, they're both like viable champions that will work in certain scenarios and nodes, but for brand new 2021 characters, I just feel like they're very underwhelming and they just don't do enough to stand out in comparison to like the 100 characters that are just better by comparison now. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with both of them, in all fairness, man. I wanted more from the February champions, but hopefully this month is going to be a little bit better. Mangog, you know, he's pretty good to play around with, and we are going to see some Odin gameplay shortly as well. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on the March tier list update in the comment section below, and if you did enjoy today's breakdown, please do smash that like button. That'd be greatly appreciated. But aside from that, thank you all very much for watching. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.